Okay, great. So hi, everybody. Welcome to this New York Open Center webinar. We're here today to get an introduction to the New York Certificate in Applied Positive Psychology. And we're here with Dan Tomasulo, who's director of the program, and Jennifer Cory, who's the coordinator. So I'll hand it off to you, Dan.
Hi, Pete. How are you?
Doing good.
Jennifer and I are here today to try to give people the highlights of the NICAP, the New York Certification in Applied Positive Psychology. And what we're hoping for today is to give you a little taste of how this certificate and an introduction to some of our teachers and some of the principles that we're going to show in positive psychology. So Jennifer, you want to say hello to folks?
Hi, welcome. It's wonderful to have you with us, and we're really excited to give you this little taste of what you'll experience if you decide to join us in this certification course in positive psychology.
So Pete, I'm going to try to go to the slides here, and I would imagine that that means I have to hit this button down here. So let's see if all this works, see if the technology works. And let's see.
Can you can you center that? Yeah, that's good. That's better. Okay, great.
Oh.
And maybe reduce it a little bit so that the whole, that's perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah, great. So right here on the first slide, what we have is some information. We have our Gmails, and we get this material right away. So if anytime you have a question about the program or some feedback or thoughts, you can email us directly at nicap16@gmail.com. And the other two bits of information are for the Twitter accounts. So we're going to start off with Jen and I. We're friends for a very, very long time, and we both have many things in common, which we'll share throughout this presentation. But the long and short of it is this is a project that's our passion. We really thought about it and wanted to work together, and last year was the beginning of this new version of the certificate program, and we decided let's see if we can bring some of the best of our experiences together. And it's been an exciting year, and now Jen and I have a whole bunch of other projects that we're interested in doing. So do you want to say anything about our background, Jen? Or?
Yeah, we're both psychotherapists in private practice. That's one of the things we share in common. We both specialize in group work. We have that in common, but perhaps, and for your informational purposes, the most important thing we have in common is that we both have become dedicated students and now professionals in the area of applied positive psychology. We both graduated from the University of Pennsylvania's Master of Applied Positive Psychology program. And we are really thrilled to bring our expertise and the science of positive psychology to you in this certification course.
So we have a few things in common. We're now doing this Open Center program together, but we've also both been through the program that Penn has on Masters of Applied Positive Psychology, where we've gotten to work with Marty Seligman and literally some of the top people in the world in positive psychology. And we're trying to bring that out into the open with this program. And I teach over at Columbia, and Jen is a graduate of their program in social work. So we have a number of things in common, and we're hoping now that as we move forward, that you get inspired the same way we did. This is Marty Seligman, and at the beginning of his course syllabus, he invites you into the field of positive psychology with this sentence: "You have been called to the deep study of positive psychology." And we really felt that when we went to that program, and you'll see some of the people that we've gotten to identify. So obviously there's Jen with Marty, and maybe you can tell folks who these other people are.
So Marty is the father of positive psychology. He is really the renowned master of this material and this research in the world. And he has brought together other scientists and other practitioners from a host of other fields. And pictured with me in some of these other images are John Rady, who is a psychiatrist and researcher at Harvard, Barb Fredrickson, who is famous for her work in positive emotion. She's down at UNC Chapel Hill. In the bottom corner is Angela Duckworth, who is the researcher who is bringing the science of grit into the field of positive psychology. John's work is specializes in part in the things that help activate the areas of the brain that increase well-being both physically and psychologically. So it's a who's who of scientists in this field who bring such an amazing collection of information that have really helped to build the knowledge base in positive psychology and in how to apply it practically.
So one of the passions that seems to have emerged for both of us is how do we, take some of the things that were so exciting for us and put them into a format, a program that's easily accessible. So I'm just going to take a minute to ask Jen to speak a little bit about her background, and then I'd like to introduce you to some of our teachers, and then actually some of our former students with what they have to say about the program.
So as I said already, I'm a psychotherapist in private practice. And what that means is that I've spent the last decade and a half helping people who are suffering to sort of get to a place of non-suffering. But as a mental health professional, it always felt to me as if something was missing there. It was wonderful to help people who were really in acute phases of distress to ease that distress, but that wasn't the same as helping them really cultivate a life of well-being. And so really that's what brought me into the study of positive psychology. I wanted to really learn how to help people not only go from -10 to 0, but how to be able to take them from 0 to +10. And so that's the interest and the passion. I specialize in helping people cultivate resilience who are in the middle of really challenging life circumstances. That's really part of what brought me not only into the field, but makes me want to do this work beyond being a psychotherapist, but to bring it to the general population.
And just so that you can get a little taste of how our weekends are set up, we have 10 modules, and we bring in a host of teachers to share their expertise. And we have the largest collection of MAPP graduates to do a certificate program. So I'd like you to get a taste of what we're going to cover and who's going to cover it. So we start in December 3rd and 4th, with an introduction. And we begin with relationships and talking about relationship science. And then in Module 2, we talk about how do you go from the science of positive psychology and put it into practice, where we'll also introduce journaling and how to get the most out of your journaling so that it leads to well-being. So these are tentative. The dates are not tentative, but the instructors, just so that you know, they've all committed to the program, and this is our best guess right now about who is doing it. We're pretty sure this is going to stand up, but just so that you know, sometimes we do move modules around based on availability. So Jen and I will kick it off on the 3rd and get the group ready to learn more about the principles in positive psychology, a little bit more about relationship science, and then Reb and Amy Rebele, who met in the MAPP program at UPenn and got married and now have a lovely daughter. They'll come in and teach the 2nd module. Is there anything you'd want to say about that?
I do. What I want to say is, you might read that and think journaling, you know, I already do journaling, or who doesn't know about journaling? And it would be an understandable reaction. The difference in what Amy and Reb bring is they're is now a wealth of science in terms of how using journaling in very specific ways really increases well-being exponentially and helps to create what's called sustainable well-being. And that's what they bring to our program. And as we like to do it at the very start, because to have people enter a program like this typically ends up being very transformational, and to have a record of that transformation over the period of time that you're with us is a wonderful way to start this new practice of journaling, this new way of doing it, to really specifically for the purpose of increasing well-being.
And so here's a little bit about Amy's background, and she works in the program over there now, and a little bit about Reb's background. And he's worked with such people as Adam Grant, who is a New York Times bestselling author, and they just recently had an article published in the Harvard Business Review. So we're getting people who are really at the, immersed in this material and are able to give you not only some of the things that have already happened in the field and how to apply them, but also the cutting edge stuff, what's new and exciting. On weekend 2, we have pleasure and positive emotions, positivity and character strengths. And again, Jen and I are going to introduce that. But then in module 4, we bring in human behavior and performance at work. One of the things that was really very noticeable, I think, in our first certificate program was that people were coming from many different areas. We had physicians, lawyers, entrepreneurs, therapists. So we had people coming from a variety of different walks in life. But teachers,
yoga instructors.
Yoga instructors.
We had an incredibly eclectic and phenomenal group. UN delegates, an amazing group.
And the diversity is really part of the strength of the program. When Robert said that he would come do some teaching for us, this brought in the whole business component about how people can help to transform their workplace and perhaps more importantly, transform themselves in the workplace. And so here's a little bit about Robert's background. And he's really quite the world traveler, right? He's been all over the place. He's like the Where's Waldo? He shows up in different countries doing consulting for a variety of different businesses. And one of the beautiful things about Robert is that he's able to help people make a direct application of these principles in the workplace. And he's got experience on both sides of the coin, both as a consultant and as an employee, and then in obviously running his own his own entrepreneurship. So he brings such a wealth of experience and information, and he'll be with us for that module. One of the amazing things that we were super lucky, right, to have this happen. We got some of the very, very top people in the field. You're going to learn a little bit about Ryan Nemec now, and some more about Barbara Fredrickson and Bob Vallerand. These are people who are really at the very peak of their endeavor in positive psychology. And Ryan was very, very kind and joined us for our first certificate program. And he has so he's going to come back and do a webinar for us. And I don't know that Ryan's ever had an unpublished thought. He is prolific. He writes on mindfulness and character strengths. And probably the most important thing right now is that he's running the Institute for Character Strengths. And he's a co-author of just many, many books. And he's a movie buff, right? He has a lot of ideas about how movies and character strengths go together. So Ryan will be joining us by webinar, and I think it was safe to say that when he launched it last time, it was so engaging because he was able to blend character strengths and meditation together, mindfulness meditation and character strengths. And I think that was the first time anybody has done that kind of work and brought it out to people so that it makes it more accessible.
The research and information that Ryan brings in terms of character strengths and how it helps to do things like thwart burnout in the workplace and helps us to achieve high levels of productivity is so absolutely fascinating. It's riveting information. I think it's hard to pick what were the group's, our last class's favorite presentations, but I can tell you that we continue to talk about Ryan's presentation and the use of character strengths from the day that he did his webinar with us all the way through to the end of our course. And it's one of the things that people remarked repeatedly that they could immediately begin to see the benefits of in their life, in their organizations, in their families. So he brings an incredibly powerful, practical piece of science to this work that we're doing.
And as we come up on weekend 3, you'll see modules 5 and 6, meaning and mindfulness meditation, and module 6, the psychology of engagement and flow and how to use positive interventions and gracious mindset. Cory Muscara is, I don't know, he's a very special person. He's appeared several times on the Dr. Oz show teaching meditation. And
he teaches at Columbia.
Teaches at Columbia.
He teaches at the University of Pennsylvania. He's a very, very well-traveled man, and I think he comes to us after having spent quite a period of time as a monk in Bhutan.
Yeah.
I think that's where it was. He's a really incredibly fascinating person.
And he's not 30 yet, right?
That's the other part.
So that's the other part about Cory. He's a when you see him, the depth of wisdom about his understanding. He's an old soul, as we might say. But again, having Ryan and Cory sort of back to back was very, very powerful, because people got to understand not only how to do different kinds of meditation and be instructed in that, but they also learned how to teach others. So that it wasn't just about the experiential part. They also learned some of the principles so that they could pass this on. And
again, we're a science-based program, so part of what people are learning, because probably everybody has heard of mindfulness meditation. So what might be different here is that we're actually talking about the science of meditation, the actual empirical evidence we have of how it helps people, under what circumstances it's most helpful, what forms of meditation have been researched and found to be the most beneficial. And so that is one of the primary differences in terms of what we bring and offer in this course.
On February 19th, we'll bring in Donna Hemmert, and maybe you could say a word or two about Donna, because
sure.
You guys go back a bit.
So Donna began her career in Silicon Valley. She has been a principal in a number of startup companies, really successful companies. She moved to the east part of the country and is now in the Washington, D.C. area, where she started Positive Business DC, which is the largest network of positive organizational individuals in positive organizations in the country. It might even be the world, but we know for sure in the country. I think they boast over 700 members at this point in time. I would say Donna is a gentle force to be reckoned with. It's a great description of her. Mm-hmm. And what Donna contributes is, because of her extensive background in organizations, she talks about how certain mindsets in organizations really help to lay the foundation in a very sort of subtle and in some ways a subconscious way, and how bringing awareness to those, even on an individual basis, begin to shift the entire culture. It's absolutely fascinating work. And again, I could say this, I'm sure, about every presenter and every presentation, but this probably got we had so much positive feedback about Donna's presentation and the information that she brought and the applicability of it. You know, we talk about it in terms of organizations, professional organizations, but all of this is relevant to any organization. And if you're part of a family, if you're part of a community, if you're part of a religious organization, then then you're part of an organization. And so this isn't just about bringing it back to work, although it's one of the places where it has tremendous practical application as well.
And just so that you can see a little bit about Cory here, again, it's such a lovely thing because we've all been through the MAPP program, and we're used to people coming to that program from very rich and diverse backgrounds. But here we have a former monk and a former Silicon Valley person, sort of presenting back to back, and again, that bodes towards the richness of the program and the instruction. And the idea here is that people may come to the program with an agenda of some kind, that they're trying to feel better in their personal life or in their work life, or maybe they're a coach and they want to learn how to use these principles. So the idea is that we really want to have this smorgasbord of data, information, readings, videos, so that the information will come to you spherically. It comes to you from all these different angles, and it's not meant for you to have to be totally immersed in something, and then the next thing and the next thing, so that you have grasped it all. But we want to totally immerse you in it, and then you take what you need from it. So if the meditation becomes something that intrigues you, or Donna's work on what's called a gracious mindset, or if it's the character strengths, as we put you in this experience with experts, then you'll see what works for you, and along the way you're trying to put together ideas for what you want to take with you as the program comes to a conclusion.
So we're really building a toolbox of positive interventions. And what distinguishes this from say maybe a traditional self-help kind of program is we make sure that every intervention that we offer is deeply based in research that has been validated and has been repeated in some way. So that people can know what the success rates and the potential success of the interventions are that they're using. And still, as Dan said, there needs to be some individual discernment. It doesn't mean that every tool will work for every person, but we want to provide you with as much really rich material and good interventions as possible, so that you can go home and begin to really cultivate a pyramid of interventions for yourself for a life of well-being.
In modules 7 and 8, we start moving into positive psychotherapy, and then some of the spiritual aspects of positive psychology, and things like self-transcendence and compassion. And Jen and I will run module 7 because we've had a lot of experience in psychotherapy, psychodrama, group psychotherapy, couple therapy, and that has really changed now. The face of that is changing. Because psychologists were originally trained, and therapists are originally trained to look at the problems. And once you deal with the symptoms that somebody presents, pretty much the therapy was over. But now with this new science, new technology, new information, that's not enough. Marty Seligman was the one who said it's pretty much a half-baked kind of thing. We're only doing half our jobs. If we bring people back to zero, they might come in at a -2 or a -3. And if we get rid of those symptoms, they'll come to a 0. But what about +2 or +3? Can we help people move along? So Jen and I will do the information on psychotherapy. And then David and Mary Bitt-Smith. So, David, we actually just saw David do a little bit of his presentation this morning. He's extraordinary. We actually went through the MAPP program together, and he is doing study in the cognitive neurosciences, and his research, I think, was some of the most fascinating of all, right? Because it was all cutting edge, talking about transcendence, possibilities toward the end of life, programs where they work with hospice, how to enhance cognitive functioning through not only meditation, but various cognitive strategies. And so David too is a force to be reckoned with, right?
And I just wanted to add something, also expanding definitions of spirituality. And his work is really absolutely riveting. And I think you'll enjoy tremendously reading about and hearing him speak about the neuroscience behind spiritual and transcendent experiences. I mean, it's really fascinating.
One of the things, we were just hearing a little bit of this even this morning about some of the fascinating work of helping people cope with very difficult diagnoses, trauma in their life, variety of struggles, and the power of the mind to help with their transcendence. And Mary Beth Smith, right? She's another force. We've got a lot of people with force of nature. She's studied everywhere. she's been at the MAPP program. She's in med school now. She's got a master's of narrative medicine from Columbia. What it did for us was help us understand how self-compassion can be truly enhanced. And she led us through a journey of not only the research, but mostly the experiential stuff about how to have greater self-compassion in your life. And actually, for me, that was one of the more powerful things. It's not even up here, but she actually studied out at Stanford for a while, and it was amazing to see the application of things like loving kindness meditation, and then how to take some of the positive feelings that you are feeling for others and help to use those feelings to nurture yourself. That was an extraordinary day.
Yeah.
Then we're on to our second webinar. This has been a very full weekend for Jen and I. We're actually at the MAPP Summit in Philadelphia, and Bob Vallerand was the plenary, the person who kicked the whole weekend off, and he's the leading authority in the world on passion, and he talks about a dualistic model of passion, of harmonious and obsessive passion. And what was so beautiful, Bob is a friend of mine, and when I asked him, would you come and do this? He was just so gracious. And the thing that blew us both away is he did the webinar presentation, and it was new stuff, new research. He of course covered some of his ideas about how passion works, and how some of his ideas might differ from other researchers. But we just saw this other presentation where there was even more new and different stuff. So we're very, very lucky to have him involved as a webinar presenter. He hails from Montreal, so it's just so great with technology that we can bring him in. But I think the students loved his theories, and they're so different, right, Jen?
Yeah, he talks about what it means to live a life of passion, and that fine line between passion that becomes instructive for your life and really beneficial, and passion that is destructive, and what life trajectories look like when people are living on one or the other, and how to bring consciousness to which of those paths that you're on, and what it means to have a single passion, multiple passions, or no passion at all. Mm-hmm. His research is, I'm saying it again, but absolutely fascinating. And as Dan said, he presented for us in August, and then for our New York CAP group, the certificate program. And then we are here now in Philadelphia. We just watched him do a presentation yesterday, and he is providing new research in Philadelphia yesterday. So one of the advantages to not having these presentations as recordings that we're just coming back to each time, the webinars, but instead having our presenters come live, is that as there are shifts, both minor and major, in their areas of research, you're the first to get that information, or you're getting it very early on, before, in many cases, this research is even published, which is an incredible advantage to being in a course like this.
So we'll take a peek here. Last what was it? Last August, right? Barbara did. Now Barbara Fredrickson is, speaking of forces of nature, she's the world's leading authority on positive emotions. She's an extraordinary researcher. So Bob was the former president of the International Positive Psychology Association. Barbara's the current one. And she did an extraordinary webinar for us. And again, you know, she's got so much in the hopper that there were new pieces of research that she talked about, the positive spontaneous thoughts and how to generate them. So she was with us last semester, and she's on sabbatical right now, but we're hoping that she's going to join us for a webinar in the spring. So hopefully that'll be part of our program. But she had planned new things for our group, which was quite extraordinary. That's Barbara with a stalker. So we'll just, right. So our final weekend, and this now it'll, you know, we go from December through April, and we had people coming in from different countries last time too, right?
We did Bermuda, Mexico. We had people from the East Coast, the West Coast, and the middle part of the country. We had somebody coming from British Columbia, people as far north as New York State. It was really, I mean, as far north in our country. But further north, it's in Canada, and what a fascinating and cohesive group it ended up making.
So in Module 9, Dan Lerner, a friend of ours, is coming in to talk about excellence, and that is really, you know, it was just so lovely because, you know, Bob's work on passion, Bob Vallerand, and then Dan's work in excellence. What a beautiful dovetail, because it's this idea that there are principles, there are elements that we know that lead to excellence, and you know, how do they work, and how do we sort of align ourselves with that, if that is indeed our yearning to become excellent at something. And then we wrap up with Dr. Alan Schlechter. He is he's kind of a very well-known pioneer already. He started the positive psychology undergraduate course at NYU, the Science of Happiness. And actually, he and Dan Lerner teach that course together. And I've had the great pleasure of being a guest lecturer there. And it's like 450 students. And whenever you see these kind of survey courses, it's all, you know, students might be, you know, checking their Facebook accounts or those kind of things. Well, not these students. They have been riveted to the materials. So again, inviting Dan and Alan in to share their expertise with us is a real treat, and it was very fitting to have that, you know, sort of near the end of the program.
So they spend an entire semester teaching undergraduates really how to be able to plan for their best possible lives. I can't imagine a single college course that could be more valuable to a group of students than that. And when they come to us, they bring this beautiful distilled version of that course to us in terms of excellence and leadership and how to be able to use strength to your benefit. They're absolutely wonderful. Like Dan and I, they have a wonderful history together. They're very good friends. It's very evident in their presentation and in their speaking of each other, and they're a real joy to have. They're a wonderful bookend to our program.
And speaking of book, they just finished a book for college students, and it's about applying these principles as you're going through college or going through any academic program. And it was I've been privileged to see you know, some of the manuscript, and it's very, very cool. So I'm sure that they're going to be bringing some of that to our program. This is Dan, and what's been happening most recently, because he's talking about excellence, he's really been able to address a wide variety of groups, everything from business management folks, CEOs, to sports. And as I say, he teaches the science of happiness with Alan. And Alan's a psychiatrist, and so he has some really, really beautiful application of positive psychology with his work at Bellevue Hospital. So it'll be a treat to have him back.
Oh, we saved the best for last.
I don't know.
I'm sure, Dan, are there things you'd like to tell him? Because there are some things I'd like to tell him.
Oh, you go ahead.
So Dan will
be
be too modest to tell you that he has authored around 2,000 publications. He, in his own right, is known worldwide as an expert in positive psychology, but not just in positive psychology. He's also an expert in people with intellectual disabilities. He's a trainer and an expert in group psychotherapy and group dynamics. He teaches at Columbia. He teaches at Penn in the MAPP program under Martin Seligman, which is an incredibly coveted position. And in his spare time, he has a private practice. And the fact that he is bringing the wealth of his expertise into the New York Open Center for their certification program is really an absolute gem. This program couldn't happen without him. And to have him as sort of foundational and then the undercurrent running through the whole program only elevates it. I mean, we have a stellar group of presenters and experts and scientists, but Dan really is the foundation of that program and elevates every piece of information and every person who comes through, both with his generous lecturing style and the way in which he receives people, but really, maybe even more importantly than that, the way that Dan can dovetail information together, can create this magnificent mosaic of all of these different pieces from different fields of science and the humanities that are coming together, the business sector, the education sector. Then Dan is able to put it together in a way that creates this mosaic that is truly greater than the sum of its parts. So we are incredibly lucky to have him.
All right, we should definitely change this slide now. What's so great is that Jen and I working together like this, and I really appreciate such a lovely introduction. But the truth of the matter is, it's been such great teamwork because there are not only the teachers and the time and the room and the play. There are 1,000 other details because we have an online program that wraps around the presentation. We obviously have all the components of making sure that the students are getting what they need. So one of the things that makes this so lovely is that when Jen and I are doing this together, it feels synergistic. It's like each of us bring something to this endeavor that are like complementary elements in each other, and we've really enjoyed the process, right, of discovering, like, and I'll go, oh geez, I didn't do that, and Jen says, I did that, and mostly that's what I'm doing. I'm saying I forgot to do that. She sort of saves my butt on that sort of stuff, but
giving him new appreciation for my details, my attention to details.
Yeah, so it's really been terrific, and that brings us to what you can expect from us. So this is over 100 hours of contact. We have on-site webs, blogging, and webinars. So, this is designed to be something where you're engaged. Certainly the on-site meetings are powerful, but we know occasionally people might get sick or they might miss something. So we record every session, and you have access to those. There's a web platform where you can see all the materials, the prep for the materials before a speaker comes in, learn a little bit about what they're going to talk about. And we've laid this out in what I think is just such an interesting format, because some people taking the certificate program don't want it to be an academic dive. They want to know about it, but they want to apply it. So we wanted to have a program that could honor that, at the same time honor people that might want to take a much deeper dive into that. Maybe use this. We have a couple of people who are using it as a jumping off point for
for their own graduate degree work,
yeah.
and to advance their positions professionally. We had a couple of people who are in public policy who are
Mm-hmm.
bringing it back into that sector.
Mm-hmm.
So really we had people who wanted to sort of sit back and take in positive psychology personally and in a little bit of a cursory kind of way. We created a layer approach so that we could honor the needs of that population, while at the same time making sure that we could honor the needs of people who were really using this as their deep dive. And many people came in already having known a fair amount about positive psychology and really wanted the opportunity to get into more of the research, have direct access to the science and many of the articles, the books, and some videos that were coming directly from the presenters, many of which aren't accessible to the public. So we decided to put this together in a layered platform. And so the first layer really is things like TED Talks that are released to us, and maybe popular press kinds of articles. And then we have a second, a third, and a fourth layer that each layer gets incrementally deeper into the material. We ask everybody to do the first layer so that when a presenter comes in, we all have the same base level of information as a jumping off place. But after that person comes, for the people who want the deeper dive, we then on our online forum, the online platform, release the rest of this information, which includes, by the way, quite generously, the slides that the presenters use in a PDF format. Our presenters on their own time will turn around and amend those slides to add things that were part of a question and answer session at the end. The level of resources and reference material. Sometimes we create whole separate documents as a result of the day that the person comes in. So this is not canned. It's incredibly fluid and interactive, and so as somebody is presenting material, if they sort of veer off the course and start to add other stuff, we make a note of it, and then they very generously turn around and upon our sending them a request, we'll start to provide all of that new information. And so our online platform is this beautiful adjunct to the in-class piece, to the live stuff that we do. And so we have these distant learning periods in which in between every month, when we're not together face-to-face, people have an opportunity to either do this kind of sort of initial amount of work that we provide, research and information, which gives a really nice overview, or to really go deep into the information. And we're really pleased that we came up with a way to be able to honor the diversity of both needs and interests of the students who are coming to us.
It gives people a chance to, get a taste of it, through the videos. Then maybe through a secondary, second layer is like blogs or people writing about the topic. And then the third layer, we start getting into the research, like how did they actually do this? How did they figure it out? And then we have, books that if people really want to absorb this at a very deep level, what books are recommended for that topic. Then we have the most number of MAPP graduates, and that's just been extraordinary. We've also set it up so that other MAPP graduates who aren't identified here might come in to speak for half an hour or an hour on their new stuff. Like when people are trying to put together a new talk or share a new idea, it's very tough for them to kind of get an audience for that. So we started that last semester. We're going to continue that trend, that if people are in the New York area and they have something hot or new or interesting and they'd like to present that to the class, half hour or an hour, we can usually invite them in. And that's also been exciting because we get to hear about stuff that is really unique and being done. And as we mentioned before, Ryan, Bob, and Barbara. Now, Ryan and Bob have already signed on. As I mentioned, right now, Barbara is on sabbatical, but we're hoping that she's going to join us in the spring, as she did for our first. And if not, there are some other people that we know are available. But our first choice, of course, is going to be Barbara.
So let me just share that the MAPP program that Dan is referring to is the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program through the University of Pennsylvania. It is the first and probably most distinguished training in positive psychology in the world. There are, I believe to date, about 350 graduates of that program around the world. And somebody might say, well, why wouldn't I just go to that program? And it's a very valid and I think important question for us to be able to answer. There are a couple of things. One is the people who go to that program, Dan and myself included, do it with the purpose of contributing to the research in the field. This is an incredibly rigorous academic program of a year in length, and it really prepares people to be able to contribute to both the literature in positive psychology and then to take this very cutting edge research and to make significant changes in whatever their original field of practice is in. Not everybody has the luxury to spend a year of their life doing that, nor the resources to be able to do it. And again, it's an incredibly competitive program, very difficult to get into. What Dan and I wanted to do was to make sure there was, and I use this word, very intentionally, a comparable program in that it is one that really is based in the science and comes from people who have not just a sort of cursory or peripheral knowledge of positive psychology, but a very, very deep knowledge. What I would call are the experts in the field, who can turn around and bring it back for people who want to know what the principles of positive psychology are. They want to know what the science is, and they want to know how to be able to apply it, but they don't have the opportunity to invest the kind of time or money that that the program at the University of Pennsylvania requires.
So that's important, Jen, too, because this isn't a graduate degree, it's a certificate. So people will be able to, identify that they have a certificate in applied positive psychology, but in no way do we want to say that this is, a master's program in positive psychology or something like that, because that would require a very different kind of approach and, affiliation with the university. Here, we're affiliated with the Open Center, and the beautiful thing about this is that it gives us the opportunity to get sort of like the front end of this experience. And this is the only program now that's approved by the New York Board of Education. So we follow certain kinds of their rules, and in terms of making sure that the content and the detail and the availability of the course is up to their standards. And it's about 1/20th of what the MAPP program costs. So that's the other thing too is, pardon me, can we make something available that's relatively low cost, very reasonable for people, where we can build a positive culture, where people support one another, and get something that they can really take with them for their personal or their professional life. So, again, back what we can offer, we have, people who are in the academic world. Myself, Alan, and Dan are teaching courses at universities. So we've been, really steeped in the materials and the research and, what works, what doesn't work, that kind of thing. So we're able to sort of pass that on. And for Jennifer and I, we're accessible. We want to make sure that if there are questions, and there will be questions, people want to know either more information or can we introduce you to, somebody that we might know that has an expertise in an area you're interested in. We make that we make that connection for you. And then finally, a bit about the capstone. And would you like to say a word or two about that?
So part of what we're doing is we know that every person comes into the certificate program for a different purpose, and often for more than one. I don't know anybody who doesn't hope to benefit personally in addition to whatever the other motivations might be. But part of what we do from the very first class is we ask people to tell us a little bit about what their motivations are. We really bring that to kind of a conscious level, and hearing other people's motivations is often really spurs and inspires the group as a whole. And then we really begin to work toward building what's called a final project or a capstone project. What we mean by that is helping people to refine and again what that vision is, so that when you leave the certificate program, you actually have an actionable plan in place. So this isn't just theoretical, and it isn't just about sitting back in and taking the information. So whether it's for your own personal benefit and edification, or whether it's to change something at work, part of what we do is want to help you really be able to create a plan for knowing what the end goal is, and then what the steps would be to actually implementing that.
And we had some really fascinating capstones, and we're coming up to a point where in a few minutes we're going to show you some of the actual people who are in the program, and they'll say a little bit more about what they got from it. But we were really intrigued because people get a chance to share what their work has been, and that was exciting because not only was the group diverse, but their projects really reflected that. So what you can expect from us as we continue: intellectual stimulation mingled with fun and positive emotions. And I think that'll be evident as you watch some of our former students talk about the program. And, it's rare that you go to something that's like an intellectual kind of thing where you're getting a certificate, and we talk about personal transformation. But to be fair, that's what happens. I think Jen would agree with me. You can't study this stuff. You can't be looking at this stuff and think, I can study it, but it's not going to really affect me. The truth is, pursuing this, and we designed the certificate program in this way, is to give you some experience, give you the connection, give you some of the group process that's underneath all this, along with the reading and the teaching and the direct involvement. And as a result, people go through some really fascinating transformations.
And because Dan and I are both practicing psychotherapists, and we both have a background in group dynamics, we've designed the program to be very experiential. And so it's anything but sitting back and hearing lectures for an entire day, an all-day Saturday and all-day Sunday, which is how the program works. We run a full day on Saturday, a full day on Sunday once a month. And we do that for the entire length of the course, and then we have the 3 webinars in between. So from an academic or an informational perspective, we provide the content for sure. But we were really interested in helping to bring that content to life by making it very experiential. And so that's one of the things that people get to experience in this program as well. And because of that, it creates this kind of culture within the group itself that takes on its own life. That's really amazing. In fact, our last class have already begun to plan ways in which they are not only staying connected and together, but they have built a network in which they are helping each person individually and each other collectively to reach their capstone goals. And it's an amazing thing to see. And Dan and I have planned for this upcoming class that we'll have a day when those graduates come back and talk about what they've done with positive psychology in their own personal and professional lives.
So that we can introduce you to your CAP brothers and sisters, NICAP brothers and sisters. What we're going to ask from you the front part was what we're giving to you, but what we're going to ask from you is to really participate, to really come in and stay as engaged as you can. Now, again, people might not be able to make a weekend or a day or a part of a day. We've set it up so that if you do miss some part of that, that there are really no worries, that you'd be able to catch what's gone on and stay connected to people. Plus, you'll be wired into the group and on Canvas, so that you'd be able to connect with people. But we're also going to start to encourage you right away to keep a journal. That's why we bring Reb and Amy in pretty early on, so you can learn a little bit about what the best ways are to enhance your well-being through journal writing. And pretty much right away, we might give you a little time in the beginning, but pretty much right away we start asking you what you want to get out of the program and what you want to take with you through the capstone project. And we're constantly encouraging people to ask questions along the way. And we're going to invite people to let us know, for us, there's a lot of moving parts to this. There's everything from the online component to setting up the teachers to follow up PowerPoints and things like that. And if something isn't working or didn't happen for you the way that you want, we're really open to getting feedback, particularly if something needs to be changed or shifted. And we've had a couple of really cool things happen by that. People would come up with ideas about how information could be presented and laid out, and we were able to respond to that.
Let me just share that because this is not stagnant and we don't come in with a rigid idea, we come in with a very clear idea about the information that we're going to present, but not a rigid idea in terms of what we do together with that information. And after the strengths webinar, we had one of our students come with a brilliant suggestion of a way in which we could identify character strengths for each other. And I'm not going to share with you what that is at the moment because we'd like to surprise you with it. We're definitely going to use it again. But it was so brilliant. People responded so beautifully to it. It was so inclusive and uplifting for everybody that we ended up carrying some version of that experience all the way through to the end of our course. And every presenter who came in and sort of came face to face with the way in which, because there was a physical component to it, the way in which these strengths were being utilized in this class was so blown away. And someone would say, hey, can I borrow that? Can I borrow that? Yeah. And so here was the sort of the creative interactive element between our students and ourselves that only took what we were doing and made it all the better.
So we're not going to do a whole bunch today on how the course is laid out, but we wanted you to just have a very, very brief idea that this stuff is really grounded in the sciences, and there are pioneers in the field. But I think rather than me going in and talking about, that history, I think what might be more important if Pete is able to help us out in a minute or so here, would be to show the testimonials. What do you think about that, Jen?
It's a great idea.
I think that I think this is a little bit of the content that we would share in the course, but I think if you're watching this, that what you'd want to see is people who have gone through the course. So Pete, can we show that? Is that something?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to take over screen sharing and show that testimonial video. So hang on.
That's great.
Let me tell you what I learned in this course. I learned a lot about life. I learned how, to be happy, to think about what makes me get up in the morning and say yes.
How I could develop better tools to have my life flourish much more. And the fact that this course is science-based was really important to me, and I've gotten a tremendous amount out of it.
It was one of the best decisions I have made thus far in my life.
The process of self-transformation in 6 months is more than I have done in 26 years of my life. I came here in a really dark place, and the course, I mean, I've been engulfed amongst people and tools that I can now use to move forward in a much more positive, happier way.
Biggest thing about it is it teaches you really life skills that everybody ought to know, but somehow the lessons aren't really out there so much, but this class gives it to you.
Made me more conscious of my life and how I can have a more peaceful and caring life for myself and others.
The idea and the awareness that we always have a choice, and we can pause and we can decide instead of just going through the motions and stay just spinning sometimes in our own habits. So the idea of the choice and the positive change in our lives is what I'm taking with me today.
What I wanted, what I needed, who I am in general was changed. It was shifted on a dime.
While I was taking this course, I started to change. So things started to change for the better.
It exceeded my expectations exponentially, and I have a great toolkit of resources that serve me both personally and professionally.
It's potentially life-changing, and I feel like it can go forward and bring so much to the environments that we live and work in.
And not only did I get more than I thought I was going to get for my business, but I got so many tools to help my family life. I developed an amazing sense of community with all the participants here, a supportive environment, and I changed personally. I've learned so many tools that I'll be using for the rest of my life.
So really the journey together and all of the great resources from the group.
Empowering, has been uplifting,
refreshing, inspirational, and it answered so many questions I don't think I could have answered anywhere else. So
you get to know yourself, and then you get to know the world because of this class.
What I have taken away from this course can be summed up as positive psychology is what I find in my Pandora's box of positive experiences and learning. I'm full of love. Thank you.
I hope you learn the same. And you got in my skinny side, right?
Wonderful. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks so much, Pete. That was terrific. That is really terrific. Thanks for getting that up there. So we're coming to the end of this, and maybe the thing I can do is just go back to our original slide so that people can see our connection. That if you have questions, you can email us directly at nightcap16@gmail.com, and either Jen or I or both of us will be able to get back to you. And we're pretty good about checking that pretty regularly. And we hope we've whet your appetite, and I hope to see you in the course in December.
It would be an honor and a privilege to go through this material with you. I hope you'll consider spending some of your really valuable time with us.
Well, thank you so much, Dan and Jennifer. We do have some people on, and maybe we can give them a chance to ask some questions. Great. So let me let people know what to do. In the upper left corner of your screen, there is a button called the Raise Hand button. And you can click that, or you can, if you want, type in a question in the Q&A panel. That's also in the upper left corner of your screen. So if you take a look there, you'll see a button called Raise Hand. And we're open for some questions and comments now about the presentation. We welcome any input that you have. Oh, we have a question here from Jan on the Q&A panel. Is it possible to get today's presentation? Love these teachers' background information. Thanks. Yes, it is possible. We're going to have a recording available of it after the webinar is concluded. We'll upload it to YouTube and send a link to everybody that registered.
Thanks for asking, Jan.
Great. So if you want to speak directly, you can speak directly to Dan and Jennifer. You just got to click that raise hand button in the upper left, and I'll unmute you, and you can talk directly to our presenters.
Well, we're waiting for any questions to come forward. I thought maybe I'd offer some of the questions that we've gotten last year when we were putting this together, and in the interim. We've had a lot of people ask, who would be the ideal student for a course like this? And the easy and short answer would be really anyone who was interested in knowing more about positive psychology. But as Dan mentioned at the start of this, I think it could be helpful to know that we've had people in the medical profession, physicians, we've had lawyers, we've had teachers, we've had an accountant, we've had people who have been affiliated with the UN. We've had stay-at-home moms.
Mm-hmm.
We've had retired people work with us, come in and want to learn this information. What am I forgetting? Oftentimes people who are in transition, are considering the other possibilities for their lives.
Right.
One of the things that we've cautioned people about is that it's not unlikely at all that people start down this road and suddenly they think, I'm not sure if I love what I'm doing with my life professionally.
Right.
And they start to consider what some of the other alternatives and possibilities are. And that always makes for very rich dialogue. And I think as people feel more and more comfortable with each other, there's more of a willingness to share that kind of information and to explore together how to be able to traverse that area of questioning in one's own life.
Yeah, and the diversity is really the strength, from yoga instructors to coaches, and that's the thing where we were able to create an environment where people are learning from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So there are no other questions right now, and it's been a really lovely presentation. I feel so much great energy from this program, and to see all the people that are involved in it, it's just totally amazing that we put this together with your amazing work and all your commitment to create a great program for the Open Center and for people that are coming to change their lives and the lives of other people.
Thank you. Well,
thanks, Pete.
Anybody who's watching along, if you have questions, as Dan said, please don't hesitate to email us. We'd be happy to answer those questions through email as well. And if you're thinking about joining us, give yourself permission to try this route in your life. You will not be sorry that you have.
And I believe I have we have a sampler, right, coming up, Pete. It's on the website, and I think that's in November, maybe early in November. I think we have that.
That's an in-house free intro?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like November 9th, something like that.
Can you give me a second here? I could confirm that for you.
That's right.
Yes, Wednesday, November 9th, 6 to 7:30. I'm going to send that info to people when I send the recording link. I think we had one person that wanted to ask a question. Kilp, did you want to get the mic and ask a question? Let me just check in with that person. Hang on a second. Hi, Kilp, are you there? Let's just leave him or her there for a minute to see if they wanted to ask a question. They had their hand raised for a moment. Well, great. Yeah, I'm going to have all this information, a link to the program, a copy of the recording, contact information about the in-house free intro. If you're in New York on Wednesday, November 9th at 6 p.m., you're welcome to come to the Open Center and see Dan and Jennifer and find out more about this great program. So I think that might be it then, unless you guys want to say some more.
No, I think we're good. And thanks for your attention today. And Pete, as always, thanks for your help in setting this all up.
And we wish you all a wonderful day.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Signing off now.